on the way in. Say hello, Willie.
Hello.
That's my son, Billy. He's gonna go play a little 1-2. Billy, tell him how it's been running so far.
Not great.
What are you gonna do tonight?
Win.
What's the intention tonight?
We're gonna win.
We are gonna win, aren't we? So my intention tonight was to play 5-10, but there's only one table right there. And geez, the stacks are already $5,000–$6,000 deep. There's only one table, and the maximum buy-in is $2,000. But I just don't think that's a good idea. So game selection means that I'm going to be playing 2-5. Well, I'm sitting in the empty bingo hall. Played it for a few hours at the 2-5 game, and it is not going very well. It started out so promising. So a little bit about the table that I was playing at. It's 2-5. When I got to the table, the first thing I saw was 3 all-ins. Then at the first hand I played, I had king, queen, offsuit. I was under the gun. I raised to 20, and it eventually was 3 all-ins on that hand, and I had folded. Next hand was I'm under the gun, +1. I have king of spades, jack of diamonds, and I raised to 20. The cutoff and the button both called, and the flop came king of diamonds, king of clubs, 5 of hearts. I let out for 25, and they both folded. I always lead out in this situation, especially at a crazy table like that, because most players don't expect it. It also, if I end up showing my king later, it allows me later on a paired board to bet, and they have to give me credit for possibly having it. So it's part of the meta game to bet the king there. So on the next one, I'm under the gun. I have the 6 of diamonds and 6 of hearts. I limp, which I rarely do, but in this game there was so much raising going on that I wanted to play the hand for hopefully 20 or 25, and I would thought that maybe there would be a raise to that amount, as opposed to if I raised to 20 it might cost 100 to play. So anyhow, I limped. There was 2 limpers to the button who made it 20. I called, and one of the other middle position players called, so there was 3 of us to the flop. And the flop was king of hearts, jack of diamonds, 6 of clubs. It checked to the button, who was the pre-flop raiser. She bet 40. I called, and the middle position player folded. The turn was a 7 of hearts. I checked. She bets 80. And I wanted to put in a raise to 220. She tanked for a long time. Finally, she turns over a king and folds. Boy, if I'd have bet like 195, I think she'd have called it. But I think the raise is right there. I'm just not so sure that I shouldn't have raised to a smaller amount. So the table I am playing at has an absolute maniac. He raises to 100 or more every time somebody rigs at 20 or 25. If he's the first one to raise, he makes it 40 every single time. He called an all-in raise with a board of ace 256, an all-in raise from somebody for $450. He called it with 2-3, and he spiked a 4 on the river to get the win. I mean, it was ridiculous. He hit everything, and absolute maniac. So this next hand is being played against that maniac. So I am under the gun +1 with ace 7 of clubs. I have $555. I make it $20. There's a middle position player who calls, and of course the maniac in the small blind raises it up to 75. I call, and the middle position player folds. So the flop is ace of diamonds, 4 of clubs, 8 of hearts. The small blind bets 75. I think I'm usually ahead here, so I make the call for 75. So the turn is the jack of clubs, giving me the nut flush draw, still top pair, not a great kicker. The small blind leads again for 75, usually showing kind of weakness when you bet the same thing on the turn as you do on the flop. I shove all in for 405. He tanks for a little bit and makes the call. So the river was the 3 of spades, and he turned over the winning hand. He had ace 10, which beat me. So I've had a day to think about this hand, and I've done some research, and it was just a mistake that I made, and I'll tell you why. So you can see here I've done an EV calculation on the hand. Let's assume that we absolutely know that the Maniac has ace 10. Given that I absolutely know that he has ace 10, then here are the EV calculations. So if after he bet $75 on the turn, there's 400 in the pot, then I shove 405, and this is what the EV is based on. So if this had been a normal tight player, I put the fold equity at 50%. If that were the case, then this shove would give me a plus EV of 184.77. That's good. If it were a normal average player, then the EV on this would be still very good, 141.73 to shove. Even on a loose average player, let's say that the fold equity is 25%, it's still a plus 133.55 EV. The problem is, this is a Maniac. I think that my fold equity, now that I've thought about it, is 0%. So with a 0% fold equity, you can see that the EV is negative 30.45. And what's even worse than that was, I don't think he's ever going to fold. I think if a 7 comes on the river, never folding. Ever, 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 ever. Even if I shove. So if I just called a $75 bet, and then a 7 come for 2 pair, he's never folding that. How often would he fold, if I called the bet, how often would he fold if a flush card comes on the river, if I hit my flush? I don't think very often. I mean, you saw from his other ones, absolute Maniac. So if that's the case, then I risked way more than I needed to. I should have risked 75, and I think I would have. If I hit the 7, I'm going to win the whole thing because he's never folding. If I hit the club, I probably am going, even let's say he folds 50% of the time. I'm still way, way, way ahead if I had hit that. I'm just not getting the full value as if I had shoved on the turn. But again, risk reward. I risked way too much for this type of player. It's a good shove if the player is even 25% fold equity. This guy was 0, so that's just a mistake. If you're unfamiliar with how to calculate EV, I'm going to put something down in the comments that shows you the details of how I did this EV calculation. Also open to comments, ask me questions. I do these all the time in retrospect or in preparation for what might happen in a game. So the other thing about this hand was it happened to be one of 2 major leaks that I have. This leak is I still continue to try and bluff guys who can't be bluffed. I've got to quit doing that. That's a definite leak. Okay, well, I just lost my 3rd buy-in. Oh my gosh, it's been a horrible night. The worst hand was with like $335. I get pocket kings. I raised to 20. Guy raises me back to 65. I make it 165, and he thinks about it and calls. The flop is ace 7-4, something like that. He checked. I shove all in because I had too much money in the pot already, and of course he calls, and he had ace queen. I mean, it's just ridiculous how it's going for me tonight. I think I'm gonna go play Omaha for a little bit. We have a 1-2-5 mixed game, and I usually do pretty good at that. I've only got $500 left, so we'll see what happens. Well, Omaha didn't go any better. I lost my 4th buy-in at the Omaha table, so now I'm down 2,000. Unbelievable. just a horrible, horrible beat at the Omaha table to lose my last, I don't know, 380 or something like that. It was just ridiculous. But when you're running bad, I guess that's what happens. Keep your chin up, buddy boy. I'm still having a good year. That just was not a good end to the night. Okay, I'm going to check in on my son to see how he's doing now. How you doing?
We're about to break.
That's what I thought.
You ready to go?
That's it?
How'd you do?
You don't want to play 5-man?
I lost a little.
A lot better than me then, right?
You done?
So I wanted to give a shout out to Brack Whitley. Brack is a talented writer. He's an entrepreneur, a businessman, and Brack, unsolicited by me, started to put my videos on his daily poker newspaper. So Brack, I really, really appreciate it. So guys, I'm going to put a link down to Brack's newspaper down in the comments below. You should subscribe. It's really good stuff. All right, thanks guys.